Welcome back to Rush the Field. We are talking Big Ten football, the second best conference in college football, argue with a wall. We have 18 teams here. To keep it short and sweet, I'm not going to be able to deep dive on every single one of these teams. I'm going to keep it short and sweet with most of them and dive deep into some of the more intriguing teams. But if you want to see a full video of like Indiana football or Iowa football, let me know down in the comments. I will do a video. But if you are new here or returning, all I'll ever ask of you is to give me a chance to talk football with you guys, whether that's a like, a comment, a subscribe. Anything means the world to me. Just give me another shot to talk football with you. You already clicked on this video. I'm only asking for one more shot and then another. You get the whole thing. Also, quick side note, quick little ISO. College Football 25, by the time you're seeing this video, should be out relatively soon. If you're watching this kind of video, I'm making a bold assumption that you like College Football 25 video game. So there will be content. Ta-da, cat's out of the bag. Whoops. Yeah, there's going to be content with that video game. I got some things that are interesting to say the least. You may see me try to act. It will either ruin this channel or, maybe be an actual series. We don't know. So let's go ahead and dive right into this Big Ten tier list because, like I said, we got a laundry list of teams to talk about in 2024. There's no way around it. Oregon as a program is probably the most polished they've ever been in their history. And I don't say that lightly. Going past just coaches and players, when you have real buy-in, when we're talking about the NIL space and having buy-in from administrators, like that is one of the most underrated ingredients that you need for a national title winning program. And I put them in the conference favorites here, but if I could put them as potential national title favorites, I would put them in that realm as well, because not only are they going to probably win a national title within the next 5 years, I fully believe that. I would put real money in that. That's not betting advice, but I would put real money on that. They have everything you want in a team that could win the conference and then go a step further. They check off the box on the NIL front, the talent acquisition, the coaching, the stadium, the facilities, even the uniforms. But we know Oregon is always going to have great uniforms. Like, I don't know what else I have to say to try to convince you, unless you have some real concerns. Maybe the offensive line isn't that good, but if they're not going to be good this year, they're going to be great next year. Like, I think their trajectory on every single level from top to bottom as a program is getting higher and higher by the minute. It wouldn't shock me if I just checked my phone right now, went to Hayes Fawcett and said, oh, wow, they got 2 more commits. That's how quickly they are rising through the ranks. And I'm going to say a take. Oregon, there's going to be some sort of next dynasty. Maybe we saw it with Clemson. I don't say this lightly when I say Oregon could be the next Clemson. They could be the next national power in college football. I truly believe that this is a team that is setting themselves up to not only be good in 2024, but be good for the next 5-10 years after. Because Dan Lanning, he's got that mentality. You saw that look in his eye when they were playing Colorado. That is a man that is going to get the job done. I wholeheartedly believe it. Then we come back down to earth with Illinois. Let me check my notes. Illinois, Brett Bielema. I put in my notes, by the way, Brett Bielema's last stand. You still get Luke Altmaier. I think it's the same story as last year, right? Where you have this team that, might have a better defense. They took a step back. Luke Altmaier, maybe he takes the next step. This offense is good. I think they're going to be bottom of the barrel to below average. I don't think they're going to be that good of a team. And the reason why I say Brett Bielema's last stand is maybe they caught lightning in the bottle. I think it was in 2022. 2023, they take a step back. Do they bounce back? Is this the year that they take that next step? I don't really see it. So with that being said, I'm going to have them in below average. Just keep it short and sweet. Indiana, bottom of the barrel. All love to Indiana with their new head coach from James Madison. I put in my notes, it's Kurt Cignetti. Apologies. Listen, I can't get all the names right. 52-9 at JMU. I think a lot of people remember last year, JMU was one of the premier topics to talk about in college football. If Indiana, yes, they bring in a lot of transfers. They bring in the new coaching staff. Maybe they're a year away from starting to get to that average here, but this is not a team that can flip the script in year one, in my opinion. Unless I'm missing something big. And maybe they got the next Cam Newton. I don't know. If there's an Indiana fan that isn't a basketball fan and is more football, And there's some reason to be hopeful in year one. I think that they have a good head coach at the helm. Getting the guy from James Madison is huge. But we're talking about in the vacuum of 2024 for this team specifically. In the pantheon of the Big Ten, they're just not going to be that high up. Iowa. They're the same old story. They're the same old story with Iowa. They're going to be a great defense. And I would put them, honestly, I'm going to put the good tier because they're good. Iowa's a good defense, but I'm not believing in that offense anytime soon. I'm just not going to fall for the bait then. Iowa is going to have some key starters on that defense that are going to go play for the NFL. They bring in a new offensive coordinator. I'll believe it when I see it. Until proven otherwise, they're going to stay in the same spot. Maryland, they lose Tua's little brother. They have a three-way quarterback battle. When we're talking about Maryland, man, I think they're just going to be a below-average team. I like their head coach. You lose when you lose a 3-year starter, maybe 2-year. I could be wrong, but Tua played for a while. Or Talia. Why am I saying Tua? Sorry, I got it mixed up. Talia Tagovailoa. I could see a world where they take a step back. A three-way quarterback battle. I mean, I don't know. If you're a Maryland fan, I just don't see you guys being in the same tier as Iowa. So that's why I'm like, it's hard for me to see a world where you lose a guy that was such like the mainstay of your program, and you guys all of a sudden are like, I guess, taking another step forward. I think they're a good team. They're pretty average. They definitely, there were some games where they punched up a little bit, and I believe there was a couple games where they punched Michigan in the mouth. I don't mean to bring up sore feelings for any Maryland fans out there, but they definitely can punch up a weight class, but consistently without Talia, I don't see a world where they're in that same tier as Iowa. Michigan. Listen, I've been on this channel saying Michigan could potentially go 8-4. They could also go 11-1. I would lean towards the under. I believe their betting odds got bumped up to 9.5 from 8.5 because I think the sweet spot for them is 9. So I think they're going to be a great team. Michigan has a lot of upside on the defensive side of the ball. We don't know what Sharon Moore is as a head coach. You could say that he kept the ship going straight whenever they were having the sign stealing incident, but we don't know what Michigan is with Sharon Moore at the helm. We don't know what Alex Orji is as a quarterback, but you have Donovan Edwards. They've been having a lot of continuity on that defense, but they lose so many pieces. It's hard for me to say that they get back to that upper echelon. They're probably closer to good than they are to conference favorites, but they're definitely in that tier of, maybe Oregon, everything I said jinxes them and they take a step back, or the other team in the conference favorite loses a couple games, or they lose to Michigan at the end of the year and Michigan sneaks back into the conference title game. They're in that kind of tier. But I wouldn't be disrespectful and say they're going to be in that Iowa tier. I do think a hot take is potentially they go 8-4, but I think realistically a 9-3 Michigan team that plays a lot of good defense and maybe some progress on the offense side of the ball is still a great team. Jonathan Smith and Michigan State. This was one of the best hires in all of college football. Being able to, pick apart Oregon State, as ruthless as it was, because poor Oregon State, man, with what happened with the Pac-12, they were having such a great trajectory when we're talking about as a program with Jonathan Smith and all these different pieces, and their conference falls apart. They get left behind, and now they're like in the Pac-2. They bring in Aiden Childs, Jonathan Smith, Michigan State. What is Michigan State in 2024? I think this is a rebuilding team. They're not bottom of the barrel. They're definitely in the below average tier, just because this is going to be something that I think takes a couple of years. I think next year is their year that they kind of surprise people. Maybe they go 8-4, and then you're looking at that third year of Jonathan Smith as potentially, hey, Michigan State is just now a team that you actually have to worry about on your schedule. I just don't think this is the year. You lose too much. Aiden Childs can only get you so far. Jonathan Smith, he can squeeze as much talent out of the guys that are on this roster, but even then, that's only going to get you like to 6-6, 7-5. I think they're going to be a below average team just because I don't think they have the guys that Jonathan Smith wants. There's only so much you could change in 1 year with a coaching swap. And I think they have more talent coming in. Like, you could say the same logic with an Indiana, but I think at least Michigan State and the guys that they brought in, I have a little bit more hope for. So I'm gonna give some love to Michigan State. I think they are on the right path compared to where they were with Mel Tucker in the post Kenneth Walker era. So they're on the right track, but I just don't think this is the year that you're like, okay, we're going to bounce back, go 9-3. No, I don't think they're going to be anywhere close to that. PJ Fleck in Minnesota. Whew. I honestly don't have a lot to think about. I'm checking my notes on Minnesota right now. And the only thing I got written down is, what's the temperature check on PJ Fleck? What are the thoughts around the Big Ten on PJ Fleck? Is he a guy? Are they a good team? I think they could be below average. Like, this is, you see a lot of below average teams, and it's more to say, like, there's a distinct gap between the good teams. Like, you may be like, why isn't there an average tier? Because I think there's a gap between the good teams and the below average. And I don't think there's a lot in the middle. And so this is where these teams that maybe a Maryland steps up and gets into that Iowa tier, I just don't see it. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that, like, two main tiers in the Big Ten, right? So we have the bad block of either rebuilding, potentially the ones that are wanting to get to that next step. Then you have the good teams that are on the right trajectory. They are 12-team playoff or really solid bowl games. And then there's just not that middle tier. And I think that's where Minnesota lands. So that's my honest question. If any Minnesota fans are watching, what's a temperature check on PJ Fleck? Are we still believers? I know that he was someone that had a lot of hype and momentum, at least within the national media. And it may just have been, what was it? Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee may have been the one that was pushing it. I know one TV show was just consistently pushing the PJ Fleck agenda. So maybe I'm missing something. Nebraska, they're a good team. I think their schedule is going to be favorable. I wouldn't put them in the same tier as a Michigan. It's a lot to ask Dylan Raiola to assume that not only say there's a world where they beat Colorado, say there's a world where they go into that Ohio State game 7-1. It's a lot to assume that a guy that with the play style that Dylan Raiola has, where it's very much a gunslinger mentality, you're going to get the ebbs and flows. You're going to get the good games and the bad games. I fear you're going to have a very much an up and down season, but an up and down season compared to what you had with Jeff Sims is an 8-4 team. So that's a good team. They have a really good defense. They have some real defensive players on that side of the ball. We know Matt Rule in his second year. I mean, I talked about in the wild card video, like, there tends to be a jump. So Nebraska, right there in that good tier, I'm not really mad about it, to be fair. I think this is a team that a lot of people are hyping up to overcorrect and maybe put them in the great. I would be a little bit more cautious in the good tier. Northwestern. I'm not going to talk about their controversy, to say the least, but they went 8-4 after what felt like a team that could potentially go 0-12 last year. I don't have a ton of thoughts on Nebraska. I think, Nebraska, Northwestern. Apologies. I see the N. Come on, work with me. David Braun, interim head coach, gets them to the 8 wins. They bring back 8 starters on the defensive side of the ball. They have a new offensive coordinator. I think this team could be, it's tough to say. I think below average, just with the new college football, Big Ten. Let me look at Northwestern's schedule to see how difficult is their schedule. They play Duke, Washington, Indiana, Wisconsin, Iowa. They have 2 losses already with Michigan and Ohio State. But you know what? Let me put Northwestern as good. A good defensive Big Ten team. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm just looking at the record. I don't know. I think there's enough there to say that they could have a good enough record of a 7-5. They could easily, let me be clear before I get anyone angry in the comments, they could easily be in the below average tier, but they're in that teetering. It's funny enough because I just talked about how there's not like a middle of the pack Nebraska's kind of middle of the pack, sadly, so I apologize for that. Ohio State is a conference favorite. They're a national title favorite. Wouldn't shock me if they win the national title. Do I need to really say more? Like, Ohio State fans, if you find this video, you guys know how good you are. I watched Will Howard film. Let me actually get an ISO. I thought I didn't have a lot to say when we're talking about Ohio State. I do. Will Howard, I don't think was a great fit in a Colin Klein offense. They ran a lot of QB power with Will Howard, which I think better fits Avery Johnson and a lot of different things, but he's a good quarterback. He's not I think he's definitely better than Kyle McCord. I just don't think it's a substantial upgrade, but I also don't think you need it. And I think, in all honesty, if two things happen, and I think they are, first of which being Ohio State is going to be one of the more power run teams that we've seen in a long time. I think they've made that adjustment. They see the success with Georgia. They've seen the success with Michigan. I think they're shifting towards that. Second, I think the one underlying concern that maybe Buckeyes fans have internally is Ryan Day going to be able to be aggressive enough when he needs to? Because they're starting to shift to that run and you tend to get more conservative. And I know there's at least thoughts in the moment, and it's tough because it's always hindsight with these decisions, is whether or not Ryan Day is aggressive enough to take the next step. Is he a guy that Ohio State fans feel confident that if it's a 4th and 3 in a marquee situation, is he punting or is he going for it? And it's tough, right? Like I said, it's hindsight, but I think Ohio State is more than well equipped to be a top 2 team in the nation. I just think maybe there's some internal concerns that Ryan Day, is he aggressive enough to make the coaching decisions to go for it all? And it's kind of lame. It's objectively, I don't think it's the most fair criticism on the planet, but there is definitely moments that you can look back and play the hindsight game. But also, if they don't win the national title, like what I've made a video before about it. You can see it on the channel. What does Ohio State need to do for Ryan Day to feel comfortable in his job? These are some of the questions to ask. I would say probably at least making the national title or getting like to the semifinals. With that being said, Penn State is a great team. I'm not going to put them any higher or any lower. We know what Penn State is. They're more likely to drop than they are to rise. They haven't made enough additions outside of the offense coordinator with the Kansas hire. I know I said that kind of in a weird way. They hired the offense coordinator from Kansas. Drew Auer has to take a step. I don't know if they have the weapons on the outside to make that kind of a big leap. I like Nick Singleton. I like the defense. Just Penn State is probably going to make the 12-team playoff, but I'm not going to feel great about it. So it is Penn State. Like it's going to piss me off if I keep talking about it. Purdue, I'm not a believer. Sorry. Like if Purdue fans are watching this, man, I'm not a believer. It's just there's not a lot for me to feel good about. They lose Nick Scordon. They lose Deion Burks. I forget they have the quarterback. I think I have it written in my notes. Yeah, Hudson Card. I don't believe. So sorry, Purdue. You're just not going to be that good of a team this year. Rutgers. Greg Schiano. I'm riding the momentum. This is a team that won a bowl game last year. They may be just really middle of the pack. So maybe I'm overvaluing Rutgers. But if they're able to take any kind of a step forward, I believe a former Minnesota quarterback, Aiden, I'm not going to try his last name, is now the quarterback there. Maybe if he's able to take next step, but I'm starting to see maybe. Nah, I'm going to keep it there. Iowa's the same old team. I was thinking about like shifting these two up because it feels better, but I'm sticking my guns where I'm at. UCLA. I really don't believe in UCLA. I think they're going to be very below average. I wouldn't say bottom of the barrel. They got some things going for them. Deshaun Foster is the head coach of UCLA, former star running back. Never had coached at any kind of a level. Eric Bieniemy's the OC. The problem with UCLA, I think, goes past the coaches. I think Deshaun Foster, as long as the expectations are managed with him, I think UCLA has some deeper issues when we're talking about that admin side or the administration side of it, where they just don't have everything polished to be ready for a Big Ten contending level team. And we saw what happened with Brian Kelly in that team, where there were some real frustrations on the NIL front. And I don't think they have everything as polished as they need to be an actual team. I want them to do good. I want Eric Bieniemy to get an opportunity. I want Deshaun Foster to do good, but I don't know if they have the players to do so, and I think they're going to be playing a very difficult schedule. This is a situation of a team that I don't think is physically prepared to handle what is going to happen at the Big Ten level. USC, speaking of not prepared for what's going to happen at the Big Ten level, I think they're going to be a good team. I don't know if you could put them in that upper echelon just yet, because we really don't know what they are as a defensive team. They make the change at the defense coordinator. And what concerns me as I dive a little bit deeper with that hire is it feels like Lincoln Riley, and the best way I could describe it is, you remember when Jimbo Fisher hired an offense coordinator, Bobby Petrino? And it was kind of like, fine, who's going to be my offense? You run an offense. Bobby, come on, come run my offense, but you're going to be the guy that we're saying is running the offense, and it's going to look great. We're going to do great. It kind of felt like, Lincoln Riley, when he wanted a defensive coordinator hire, he was like, well, let me look around. UCLA had a good defense. Come on. We're going to run a defense. It's going to be great. I'm going to run the offense. It's going to be great. And it's not to say, because I'm not assuming that the defense coordinator hire is not going to work, but you bring in a secondary guy from the Pac-12. Yes, UCLA had a pretty good defense last year, if not great. And obviously you had Latu. It's hard for me to tell, because it also feels like I said with UCLA, they have the NIL front just not down yet. It's not like they have a lack of money at USC. And it feels like the administration is just not as polished as they need to be. And it feels like Oregon has taken advantage of the whole West Coast Big Ten factor. And what I mean by that is, you're able to go to recruits and be like, hey, we are the Big Ten team in the West. Point blank period, we are the Big Ten team. Whereas that's what USC wanted to be. Originally, they wanted to go to the Big Ten and say, hey, we are going to be the team in the Big Ten out West. It's the same thing that the Big Ten wants to do with wanting a team out in Florida. Oregon has taken advantage of that. USC, though I like Miller Moss, I love Zachariah Branch, I love Lincoln Riley's offense, all that to flip in 1 year is hard for me to see, especially when I don't think they got the players to do so, and they have not been recruiting to feel confident even past 2024. So I think they're going to be a good team, but I don't see them taking that major next step. Washington, I think, is going to be below average. I'm putting Northwestern below, or not Northwestern. Yeah, I'm putting Northwestern below average, and I'm going to put Washington at that good tier. You get Jedd Fisch, Will Rogers, and you lose so many pieces. I mean, it's the same thing when we're talking about TCU, and honestly, hot take, I'm putting them in below average. You just don't replace that much and be able to at least keep that high level. I think we're looking at another TCU year. I love Washington in this program and everything around it. I think Jedd Fisch was a great hire, especially with the context of losing Kalen DeBoer, but it's hard for me to imagine them keeping that high level, especially moving to a new conference. It's going to be something that kind of reminds me of Michigan State, where you bring in that quarterback. Keeping someone like Will Rogers is huge, but I don't see a major ceiling with Will Rogers. Maybe, because honestly, Jedd Fisch and Noah Fifita was a great pairing, but I don't see it. It's hard for me to see them taking an 8-4 realm. I think they're going to be a below average to average team. And then we're talking Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's going to be pretty good. Luke Fickell, second year. Tyler Van Dyke is the projected starter. They lose Braylon Allen. I think they're still trying to work on a lot. We're going to know very quickly how good this team is when they play Alabama. They do get them at home. Very interesting matchup, by the way. I think it's one of the more like they scheduled that. That's an interesting little matchup. So I don't really know what to expect with Wisconsin, but I don't think they're going to have a very low floor. I think there could be a really average team to maybe surprising some people. Maybe they're able to catch Alabama off guard and not win the game, but, you know, surprise some people. Tyler Van Dyke was still a really good talent. He could still be a good college quarterback, bare minimum. So with that being said, this is the tier list. It's tough. I mean, the Big Ten, when you get to that good to below average, if you want to say average, it's very difficult to say who should be where. But I feel confident about the conference favorites. I feel like there is a gap between the great compared to the good. It's a mixed bag when you get to that point, but I do feel strong about the bottom of the barrel just being at the bottom of the list. I think Indiana's on the right track. I don't really love what Purdue is doing right now, and they're losing. I mean, it's Purdue football. I'm not expecting the world out of them. But with that being said, this is about a 25-minute video, so thank you so much for watching. Please, all I'll ever ask of you is give me a chance to talk football with you. So see you guys next time.